The water rose faster than my eyes could blink. One moment I was holding my children's hands, their small fingers wrapped tightly around mine, and the next, the river broke through the walls of our home like an angry beast set free. Their laughter, their little smiles, the ones that always filled my nights with light, were stolen in that terrible moment. I screamed their names, my voice fighting against the roar of the flood, but all I heard back was silence. Silence that broke me into pieces. I remember trying to fight the water with my weak arms, as if I could drag the whole river back with my bare hands. But it was stronger than me. It was stronger than the love of a mother and grandmother. In one blink, the flood carried away the joy I lived for, and I felt my soul tear apart. I still hear their voices sometimes in my dreams calling out, "Grandma! Grandma!" But when I turn around, there is no one there. Only the sound of rushing water. That night, I learned what true pain feels like. That night, I cried a cry the world will never forget. A cry that still echoes through my bones. But before I tell you how the flood came to steal my children's smiles, you must know the life we lived before that night, because everything seemed so normal, until the clouds grew dark. Our story began on a bright morning in the little town of Brooksville. The air smelled of wet earth because it had rained lightly the night before, but the sun came out and painted the sky with hope. I was in the kitchen, humming an old hymn while stirring porridge in a pot. My grandchildren, Peter and Rose, were running around the yard barefoot, their laughter bouncing like little bells. "Grandma, come play with us," Peter shouted, his brown eyes shining with joy. After breakfast, I told him, smiling as I wiped my hands on my apron. Life was simple. We didn't have much money, but we had each other. The children's mother, my daughter Sarah, had gone to the marketplace to sell vegetables. Their father worked in a nearby town and came home only on weekends. So most days it was just me and the little ones. And oh, how they loved to smile. Their smiles could melt the hardest heart. But as the days passed, the clouds above Brooksville began to change. The rain that once came softly began to fall with anger. Each evening we watched the river behind our home swell, its waves lapping closer to the path that led to our farm. First we didn't worry. After all, we had seen the river rise before. It always went back down. But this time it was different. One evening, as the children played with their wooden toys, I noticed the sky. It was darker than I had ever seen. The kind of dark that hides secrets. Thunder grumbled from far away, and the air smelled like wet smoke. I told the children to come inside. "Why, Grandma?" Rose asked, tilting her little head. "Because the sky is angry," I whispered. That night, it rained without stopping. The roof shook with every drop, and the wind sang like a mourning mother. I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the river rise like a giant awakening from slumber. I prayed, "Lord, please keep us safe." The children, innocent as they were, slept peacefully, their little chests rising and falling with each breath. I stared at their faces, the smiles they had given me during the day still fresh in my memory, and I promised myself that no matter what happened, I would protect them. But promises can break when nature decides otherwise. The next morning, the rain was heavier. Sarah came running from the market, drenched to her bones. She looked at me with wide eyes. "Mama, they say the dam upstream is weak. If it breaks..." Her words trailed off, but we both knew what she meant. The whole town could be swallowed. We spent the day packing what little we could. Some clothes, dry food, a lantern, and my old Bible. The children were confused, asking why we were rushing, why their toys were left behind. "Don't worry," I told them, forcing a smile. "We are only going somewhere safe." But inside I was afraid. Afraid of what was coming. By evening, the water was already licking the doorstep of our house. Neighbors shouted from outside, urging us to leave quickly. Some had boats, others carried their children on their backs. The road was no longer a road. It was a river with no mercy. I lifted Rose onto my back, while Sarah held Peter's hand. We stepped into the water. It was cold. It was strong. And with each step, it rose higher, as though it wanted to pull us under. "Hold tight," I cried out. That was when I heard it. A loud crack, like thunder splitting the earth. People screamed. The dam had broken. The river roared like a monster unleashed. And in that terrifying moment, the flood came rushing toward us, higher, faster, stronger than anything I had ever seen. And then, the sound was deafening. The ground beneath my feet trembled as if the earth itself was afraid. People screamed, goats bleated, and dogs howled as the wall of water raced toward us. I clutched Rose so tightly on my back that she whimpered, "Grandma, you're hurting me." I loosened my grip, tears stinging my eyes. "I'm sorry, baby. Just hold on to me." The water hit us with such force that I nearly lost my balance. Sarah screamed as she tried to keep hold of Peter, whose small legs struggled against the current. I reached for her hand, but the water pushed us apart, spinning us like dry leaves caught in a storm. "Sarah! Peter!" I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the roar. Rose cried into my ear. Her tiny arms wrapped around my neck. My old legs fought against the pull of the water. For every step I tried to take forward, the current dragged me 2 steps back. Around us, neighbors clung to floating debris, shouting the names of loved ones. Then, like a miracle, a small fishing boat appeared, paddled by an old man from the village. "Come! Come quickly!" he yelled, stretching out his hand. I pushed Rose toward him, my heart breaking as I let go. He grabbed her and pulled her onto the boat. I tried to climb in, but the boat shook violently with each wave. "We can only take one more," the man cried, fear written across his wrinkled face. "No!" I screamed. "My family, my daughter and grandson, they're still here." But the water was rising too fast. The boat wobbled dangerously. If he tried to wait for the rest of us, it would capsize. He looked at me with sorrowful eyes. "I'm sorry. I'll come back." Before I could argue, he pushed the boat into the current, and I watched helplessly as Rose was carried away, her little hands reaching out for me. "Grandma!" she cried. Her voice still burns in my heart like fire. Torn between chasing after the boat and finding Sarah and Peter, I stood frozen for a moment, my heart splitting in two. Finally, I chose to search for my daughter and grandson. I pushed against the water, calling their names. "Sarah! Peter!" My voice cracked. At first, all I could see was water and floating roofs, but then there, I spotted Sarah clinging to a piece of wood, her other arm wrapped around Peter's waist. "Hold on!" I shouted, fighting my way toward them. Sarah's face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. "Mama! He's slipping!" I could see Peter's small hands struggling to grip her arm. The water tried to tear him away. My heart thumped louder than the storm itself. "Don't let go!" I cried, stretching my hands toward them. Just as my fingers brushed Sarah's, a massive wave surged between us, lifting me high into the air before slamming me down with brutal force. My head hit something hard. For a moment, the world turned black. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer holding on to anything. My arms were empty. Around me, all I saw was the angry river swallowing houses, trees, and people. I tried to scream, but water filled my mouth. I coughed and choked, my arms flailing desperately. And then, through the blur of rain and tears, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Sarah's grip had loosened. Peter was slipping from her arms. And before I could reach them, Peter was slipping. His little hands, once so full of life and laughter, were now trembling and weak against Sarah's arm. I saw the fear in his eyes, wide and desperate, like a child caught in a nightmare he could not wake from. My heart screamed louder than the storm, louder than the rushing river that tried to tear us apart. I stretched my hands as far as I could, my fingers clawing at the water, but I was still too far. "Hold on, Peter. Hold on," I cried, choking on the flood. Sarah's face was pale with terror. Her lips moved, whispering prayers I could not hear, and then she screamed my name. "Mama! He's slipping!" And before I could reach them, before my old legs could push through the water, Peter's small hand slipped free. "No!" My cry tore through the night, but the storm swallowed it. I watched helplessly as the water snatched my grandson away, spinning his little body down the angry current. His cry pierced me, then vanished into the roar of the flood. My arms thrashed through the water, but I was too slow. The river was too fast. Sarah screamed, a sound that ripped into my soul. She reached out for him, but the wood she clung to spun and nearly dragged her under. I swam with everything inside me, coughing, gasping, my body slamming against floating debris. My hands reached into emptiness, over and over, but Peter was already disappearing into the dark. Peter. My baby. Peter. Sarah's voice cracked, and her tears mixed with the rain. I tried to grab her before she lost her grip too, but the river pushed us apart again. For a moment all I could feel was the crushing weight of failure. I was his grandmother. I was supposed to keep him safe, to protect his smile, to keep his little heart beating. And yet, in front of my eyes, the flood had stolen him from me. But I could not give up. I would not. With every ounce of strength in my frail body, I pushed forward, my eyes scanning the black waters. I saw a flash of his small shirt far ahead, bobbing like a broken leaf. My chest burned, my legs kicked weakly, but I told myself, I must get him. I must. The current dragged me under suddenly, pulling me deep. I swallowed water, choking, my arms flailing. The cold wrapped around me like chains. Just when I thought my lungs would burst, I kicked against something solid, a floating door, and pushed myself back to the surface. I gasped, spitting water, blinking against the rain. When my eyes cleared, Peter was gone. I screamed again, a cry that came from the deepest part of my soul. I had lost sight of him. Sarah was still clinging to the wood, sobbing, her voice hoarse. Mama, where is he? Where is my son? I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell her he was safe, that he was just ahead, that we would find him. But all I had was silence. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Only tears. The flood carried us farther and farther, past broken houses, uprooted trees, and lifeless animals floating in the current. The night felt endless, a cruel punishment that would never end. At last, the water slowed just a little, and I managed to grab hold of a half-broken canoe drifting by. I pulled Sarah toward it, helping her climb inside. My hands shook as I lifted myself up, collapsing inside with exhaustion. My chest heaved. My body ached. My heart felt like it had shattered into a million pieces. Sarah curled into a ball, sobbing uncontrollably. My baby, my baby. I touched her wet hair gently. My voice shook. We will find him. We will not stop searching. But even as I said it, I knew I was lying. The river was merciless. The night was cruel. And Peter, my sweet Peter. Still, I had to be strong for Sarah. I could not let her sink into despair. Sarah, listen to me, I whispered. You must be strong. We will find Rose. We will find safety. And Peter, maybe the Lord has kept him safe somewhere. Her eyes, red and swollen, looked into mine. Do you really believe that? My lips trembled. I must believe. If I stop, I will die. The boat drifted for hours. The rain did not stop, though it softened at times. We floated through what used to be Brooksville, but now it was only a sea of ruins. I saw rooftops barely above the water, the church steeple broken, the school washed away. Everything we had known, everything we had built, gone in one night. But nothing hurt more than the silence of Peter's absence. His laughter had once filled every corner of our lives. Now the emptiness screamed louder than the storm. As dawn approached, the sky turned gray, and the rain finally began to weaken. I held Sarah's hand tightly, afraid she might lose her mind from grief. She stared blankly at the water, whispering Peter's name over and over. I wanted to tell her to stop, but I couldn't, because in my heart, I was whispering his name too. Hours later, the current carried us toward a cluster of survivors gathered on a higher ground where the flood had not swallowed completely. They pulled us in, giving us blankets and hot tea. I held the warm cup in my hands, but I could not drink. The only taste in my mouth was bitterness. People whispered around me, sharing stories of who they had lost. Some had lost their homes, others their parents, others their children. The flood had been merciless to all. But when I told them about Peter, their faces fell silent. No one had words to comfort me. That night, as we sat by a fire built with damp wood, Sarah lay her head on my lap, still crying. I stroked her hair slowly, my eyes staring at the flames. The fire crackled, but all I heard was the rushing of the river in my head, and the image of Peter slipping away. I asked myself over and over, could I have saved him? Was there something more I could have done? Why did I let go of Rose so quickly? Why was I not strong enough? The questions burned inside me, and the answers never came. And yet, in the middle of my grief, I realized something. The flood had taken much, But it had not taken everything. Sarah was still here. Rose was still somewhere out there, alive. I had to keep going. For them. But just as that small spark of determination lit up in me, the earth trembled again. A distant roar echoed across the valley. People froze, their faces turning pale. Another wave, someone whispered. The river is rising again. My heart sank. We had barely survived the first flood. And now a second one was coming. The ground beneath us shook violently. The sky darkened once more. And as I pulled Sarah close to me, I realized our nightmare was not over. It had only just begun. The ground shook again, harder this time. It was as if the earth itself was angry at us. As if the heavens wanted to remind us that we were too small to fight its power. People around us screamed. Mothers clutched their children. Men shouted for everyone to run to higher ground. But where was higher ground when the water was already everywhere? Sarah gripped my hand tightly. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. Mama, not again. Please, not again. I pulled her close, wrapping my arm around her trembling shoulders. Hold on, child. We will not let the river win. Not tonight. But inside I was not sure of anything anymore. My heart still bled from losing Peter. I could not bear the thought of losing Sarah too. The roar grew louder, the kind of roar that silences every other sound. I could feel it in my bones before I saw it. And then in the distance, past the broken trees and shattered homes, I saw it. Another wall of water racing toward us. This one was taller, darker, angrier. People ran in every direction, their cries piercing the heavy air. Some carried babies on their backs. Others tried to save whatever little they had left, bags of grain, pots, blankets. But none of it mattered. The wave was too strong. I grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her toward a tall tree that still stood firm, its roots gripping the earth like a stubborn old soldier refusing to fall. Climb! I shouted. Climb, Sarah. Her eyes widened in fear. Mama, I can't. You must, I screamed, shoving her toward the trunk. My old legs pushed against the slippery mud. And somehow, by sheer will, I lifted her high enough for her hands to grip the first branch. She pulled herself up, her body trembling. Come, Mama, she cried, stretching her hand down to me. I tried. I truly tried. My hands grabbed the bark, my feet slipped in the mud. But the tree seemed too high, my body too weak. My arms shook, my breath came in short gasps. Then the wave struck. The ground shook as the water smashed into the land. A deafening crash filled the air as huts, fences, and even whole trees were ripped away. The force of the water hit me like 1,000 fists. My body slammed against the tree, and I held on for dear life, my fingers clawing at the rough bark. Mama! Sarah screamed from above. Her face was streaked with tears and rain. Don't let go. The water rose higher and higher, splashing against my chest, then my chin. I kicked, I fought, my lungs burning with every gasp. Climb higher, Sarah. Don't look back. I shouted, even as the river tried to pull me away. People's cries filled the night. Some were swept past us, their arms flailing, their voices begging for help. I wanted to reach out, to save them, but I could barely save myself. The tree shook violently under the force of the flood, but still it stood, strong and proud. I pressed my cheek against its bark, whispering, Lord, don't let me die here. Not yet. I must find Rose. I must keep Sarah alive. The water finally began to steady, though it still swirled angrily around us. I coughed, spitting out river water, my chest aching. My arms felt like they were on fire from holding on so tightly. Mama, Sarah whispered from above, her voice trembling. What if she's gone too? Her words stabbed me deeper than the flood ever could. I closed my eyes, shaking my head. No. Don't speak like that. Rose is alive. I feel it in my bones. But even as I said it, I was not sure if I believed myself. Hours passed. The rain slowed to a drizzle, the thunder softened, and the river, though still swollen, no longer roared as loud. Survivors clung to whatever they could find. Trees, rooftops, pieces of wood. The night was filled with groans, coughs, and the silent grief of those who had lost too much. Sarah finally climbed down from the tree, her legs shaking. She helped me down, and we collapsed on the muddy ground together. We held each other in silence, too tired to cry, too broken to speak. Morning came slowly, painting the sky with dull gray light. The once lively town of Brooksville was gone. Nothing was left but water, mud, and ruins. The smell of death hung heavy in the air. We walked carefully through the wreckage, calling Rose's name. Every step felt like walking through knives. Each cry of her name tearing at my throat. Rose. My baby Rose. Sometimes, I thought I heard her voice. I would run toward the sound, my heart racing with hope, only to find it was only the wind, or another child crying for their mother. Sarah clung to my arm, her face hollow, her eyes swollen from endless tears. "Mama, what if she didn't make it?" she whispered again. I stopped, turned to her, and held her cheeks in my hands. "Listen to me, Sarah. We cannot give up. If Rose is alive, she needs us to find her. If she is gone," my voice broke, but I forced myself to continue. "If she is gone, then she deserves for us to at least know. We must try. Do you hear me? We must try." Sarah nodded weakly, but her eyes told me she had already lost hope. As we moved farther, we came upon a sight that froze us in place. A group of rescuers had gathered by the riverside. Their faces were grim, their voices low. On the ground, covered with blankets, lay several small bodies. My knees buckled. My chest tightened. "No." Sarah gripped my arm, her voice trembling. "Mama, what if one of them is Rose?" I felt the world spin around me. The strength drained from my body. My hands shook as I took a step forward. Each step felt like walking toward my own grave. I reached the rescuers, my voice shaking as I whispered, Please tell me my granddaughter is not here." One of the men, his face heavy with sorrow, looked at me. "We pulled them out of the water this morning. We don't know their names. You must look." My heart screamed. My soul begged for mercy. I pulled the first blanket back. Not Rose. The second. Not Rose. The third. And then, my hands trembled as I reached for the third blanket. The fabric was wet and heavy, clinging to the small shape beneath it. My breath came in sharp gasps, my eyes stinging with tears I could no longer hold back. Sarah's hand gripped my arm so tightly it hurt, her nails digging into my skin. "Mama," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I can't look." But I had to. I had to know. Even if the truth destroyed me, I could not let my granddaughter lie there alone, unnamed, unclaimed. I pulled the blanket back slowly, terrified of what I would see. My eyes fell on the little face, pale, still, her hair plastered to her forehead, her lips slightly parted as if she had tried to call for someone one last time. For a moment, my heart stopped beating. My mind refused to believe what my eyes saw. But then relief. It wasn't Rose. I let out a sob, half from sorrow for the child who lay there, half from the desperate hope that Rose might still be alive somewhere. I dropped the blanket back over the body, whispering a prayer. "Lord, receive this angel." Sarah broke down beside me, her tears falling onto the mud. "Mama, I can't do this. I can't." I held her shoulders, forcing her to stand. "We must. For Rose. For Peter. We must have the strength." We moved to the next body. My hands shook so badly I could hardly grip the blanket. I wanted to run, to close my eyes, to pretend this was not real. But I pulled it back. Again, not Rose. Another child stolen from another mother's arms. One by one, we checked them all. Each time my heart pounded in terror. Each time I whispered a prayer of gratitude when it was not her. And each time I wept for the mothers who would never see their children smile again. When we finished, Sarah collapsed into the mud, her sobs shaking her whole body. "Mama, if she's not here, then where is she? Where is my baby?" I crouched beside her, pulling her into my arms. My voice cracked as I whispered, "She is out there. Somewhere. We will find her." But inside, doubt gnawed at me. The flood had carried so many away. What chance did we really have? Still, I forced myself to stand. I could not break. Not yet. Not while Rose might still be alive. We joined the group of survivors moving toward the rescue camp. The path was filled with broken wood, shattered memories, and silence heavy with grief. People walked like shadows, their faces blank, their eyes lost. Some carried bundles with the little they had left, others carried nothing at all. At the camp, tents had been set up on higher ground. Aid workers moved quickly, handing out water and food. Children clung to strangers, crying for parents who might never come. The air was filled with the sounds of sorrow, moans, whispers, prayers. Sarah and I sat by a small fire, warming our frozen hands. She stared blankly into the flames, whispering Rose's name over and over. I stroked her back gently, though my own heart felt like ash. Then from across the camp a cry rose. They found more survivors. My head snapped up. Hope surged through me like a spark in the darkness. I grabbed Sarah's hand. Come. We ran toward the rescuers, who were carrying in a group of soaked, trembling children. My eyes scanned their faces desperately, searching for that one smile I thought I might never see again. And then, I saw her. Rose. She was wrapped in a blanket, shivering, her lips blue from the cold. But her eyes were open. She was alive. Rose! I screamed, rushing forward. I fell to my knees beside her, pulling her into my arms, holding her so tightly I feared I might crush her. Oh, my baby, my sweet baby, thank you, Lord. Sarah collapsed beside us, covering Rose's face with kisses, crying so hard she could barely breathe. My child! My child! For a moment the world stopped. The flood, the grief, the pain, all of it disappeared. All that mattered was that Rose was alive in our arms. But joy and sorrow are cruel twins. Because as I held Rose close, as I felt her little heart beating against mine, another voice inside me whispered, Peter is not here. Peter will never be here again. My tears flowed freely, mixing joy with pain. I kissed Rose's damp hair, whispering, we lost one smile, but the Lord has returned another. The camp rejoiced for us, but in my heart, a storm still raged. And then, just as I thought we might finally breathe, a man came running into the camp. His clothes were torn, his face scratched. He shouted, the flood has broken the bridge. More people are trapped on the other side, and the water is rising again. The crowd gasped. Panic spread. And in that instant I realized, our fight was not over. The river still had more to take. The river stole much from me. It stole my home, my neighbors, my friends. It stole the laughter of little Peter, a smile I will never see again. It carved a wound in my heart that will never heal, no matter how many years pass. That night I cried a cry the world could not hear, but one that shook heaven itself. It was the cry of a grandmother who lost the light of her child's smile. And yet, in all the sorrow, the Lord still left me with Rose. When I held her in my arms again, I understood that even in the darkest night, God leaves us with a candle. Sarah, though broken by grief, still clung to me and I to her. Together we carried the weight of our loss. Together we fought to live another day. The flood taught me that life is as fragile as a leaf floating on water. We cannot hold on to everything. Sometimes the river will take. Sometimes the storm will break what we love. But in the end, what matters is not only what we lose but what we choose to protect, and how we choose to live after the loss. I tell you my story so you may learn. Never take the smiles of your loved ones for granted. Hold them close while you can. Tell them you love them, not tomorrow, not later, now. Because one night, without warning, the river may rise, and you may find that time has run away like the current. And if you are ever caught in a flood, whether of water or of life's troubles, remember this. Grief may drown you for a time, but hope is a raft that will always float. Cling to it. For as long as you still breathe, there is still reason to fight. This is Grandma's cry. The flood stole my children's smiles, but it did not steal my faith. It did not steal my will to love. And though the river swallowed one life too many, I will carry Peter's memory with me forever. His smile may be gone from this world, but in my heart, it shines still. Waterwave, broken heart, folded hands.